Hi everyone. In this video, I will be talking about action research, what action research actually is, how it works, how it can be used as a strategy for professional development. And finally, I'll be sharing my personal experiences about action research. So here we have the overview of this video. First, I will talk about what action research is. Then I will discuss how action research works. Then we will talk about action research as a professional development activity. And lastly, I will talk about my own experience with action research. To start with, what is action research? Although there have been many attempts to define what action research really means, here we have some of the most influential definitions. For Elliott, action research is the investigation of everyday problems that are experienced by teachers. And for Whitehead argues that AR comes into play as he experiences a problem when his educational values are negated in his practice. Carr and Kemmis describe action research as being about the improvement of practice, the improvement of the understanding of practice, the improvement of the situation in which the practice takes place. So in short, action research in education is grounded in the working lives of teachers. The research is carried out by teachers themselves, and the problem or the topic that is framed is related to teachers' own practice and teaching environment. And this practical focus makes action research significantly valuable for teachers. So, how does action research work? Basically, action research, in action research, the researcher experiences a problem in his practice, imagines a solution to this problem, acts in the direction of the solution, and later on evaluates the outcomes of these actions, meaning the implementation, and modifies the problems, ideas, actions in the light of his evaluations. So we can definitely say that action research is an iterative cycle because it involves planning, action, observation, reflection, and the researcher can go back and forth among these phases. So it's a iterative cycle. And we have a visual representation here. We are talking about the stages of AR cycle. So first we start by identifying the problem at hand, then we devise a plan, and we act to implement our plan and observe the results, maybe collect data, analyze these findings, and finally reflect on our findings and share our findings with other teachers or researchers. So this cycle doesn't necessarily have to be in the same order each time we carry out an action research, because sometimes the plans that we devise may not lead us to the conclusions that we want. So that's why we might need to iteratively go back and forth among these processes. So AR as a PD activity. When teachers conduct action research, they develop renewed theoretical and practical knowledge. They develop reflectivity, new identities, greater autonomy, and enthusiasm for teaching and learning. Thus, teachers become explorers, and AR becomes a medium for interaction among teachers. AR can be considered as a strategy for professional development, as it provides awareness and autonomy for teachers' development. It also has collaborative benefits when teachers share their personal experiences with other teachers, and it's highly important to point out the fact that through action research, teachers might develop new identities and specifically teacher researcher identity as well. So if we come to my own experiences, last year during 2020-21 semester, I was taking an action research course at Bahçeşehir University in Turkey. And as this was as part of my MA program, one of the requirements of the lesson was to conduct an action research. With two friends from the course, we designed an action research project for the course. For the first time, I was actually involved in a real action research project. The topic of our study was, as you can see here, the effect of extensive readings on the writing proficiency of EFL students. The problem addressed in this study was poor writing skills of the prep school students. One of the fellow teacher researchers was teaching at a private university in Turkey. She observed this problem in her prep classrooms. And after doing hours and hours of reading on the literature, we came up with an action plan. And our implementation plan was the inclusion of extensive reading materials into the experimental classroom. And with this plan in mind, we came up with the following research questions that you can see here. So the questions addressed in the study were, is there a significant change in the writing proficiency of students after the inclusion of extensive reading in the classroom? And the second research question was, what are the perceptions of students regarding the effectiveness of extensive reading on their writing proficiency? So let's talk a bit about the methodology. Basically, we applied mixed method design to compensate for the weaknesses of the quantitative data with the strengths of the qualitative data. More specifically, we applied an explanatory sequential design, as the collection and analysis of quantitative data came before the collection and analysis of qualitative data. Due to practical reasons, we made use of convenience sampling. A total of 20 undergraduate B1 level EFL students participated in this research. Half of them were part of the experimental group and the other half was part of the control group. At first, students were given pre-test on writing, and then a true experiment was applied for 3 weeks by teaching the experimental group 3 short stories. And lastly, they took a post-test to compare the pre and post-test scores. Concerning the qualitative data, semi-structured interviews were conducted via email to explore the students' perceptions on the effectiveness of extensive readings on their writing proficiency. Later on, the data collected was analyzed either quantitatively on SPSS or by the way, we run descriptive statistics and sample t-tests, and the qualitative data was analyzed thematically. So if we come to the results of the study, to answer the first research question, we actually compared the paired sample t-test results of the experimental group and the control group. And this led us to the conclusion that the experimental group outperformed the control group after the integration of extensive reading into their writing proficiency. In other words, the experiment proved the effectiveness of extensive reading in the development of EFL students' writing proficiency. Moreover, to increase the validity and the reliability of our findings and to answer the second research question, semi-structured interviews were analyzed, and the following themes emerged, as you can see here. Like literary criticism, admiration of extensive reading, critical thinking, vocabulary acquisition, advantages of extensive reading, benefits of reading, reading and writing proficiency. So these were mainly the findings of our study. If we come to the pros and cons that I took from this action research project, I can definitely talk about increased confidence. As a novelty researcher, this was the first research project that I conducted, and being able to come up with solutions to teaching problems in my own teaching context made me really confident. And another positive aspect was develop teaching skills and practices and gaining insights, since the results helped me improve my teaching practices and skills, and I also gained insight. The project also had collaborative benefits, since I worked with other teachers in this project. And I can definitely say that AR can be considered as an effective professional development activity, because teacher is always in the center here. Teacher is active through the process, and in no other professional development activity, teacher is this significant. If we come to the negative sides, I would say this AR project was a top-down project. It was mandatory because it was a final, let's say, homework for the MA program, and this made me less willing to do the project. And I had some time constraints and workload because I was teaching as I was also doing this experiment. Time limits and workload was a negative side. Lastly, the quality of the project. If we come to the quality, I can say that the sample size was quite limited in this study. If we were to do this with bigger sample size, this study, then the results would be more generalizable, and the implementation span, like we had just 3 weeks for the implementation. If this was conducted in a longitudinal way, the results would be more reliable and valid. So this is all I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.